Welcome to Small Arm Solutions. Welcome to part 2 of Feeding the Black Rifle. In part 1, we went through many magazines to show my experience with them, what they were. We were able to get a quantity of probably over 40 magazines. Perhaps there was only 3 or 4 magazines that I was unable to find, and those magazines were so obscure that they're pretty much irrelevant. So we're going to jump right into it right now with a magazine that anybody who's familiar with the M16M4 platform is familiar with, OK Industries. OK Industries has been around since the 70s. They were part of the development of the 30-round magazine for Colt way back when. Now, OK Industries has a cage code, 33710. You will see 33710 on many magazines because OK Industries, up until more recently, only manufactured for OEMs. You would have them for Colt, you would have them for Lewis Machine and Tool, you would have them for NHMTG, and many others. Any magazine that you see from any manufacturer, regardless what the floor plate says, if you see that cage code 33710, that is OK Industries. OK Industries has been pretty much the sole manufacturer for Colt going back probably 20-30 years. They have manufactured for U.S. government. They have manufactured for original OEMs. Talking a little bit about the quality of OK Industries. OK Industries is the standard from which all aluminum manufactured magazines are compared. If you want to go back to the early days of the global war on terror, there were some additional contracts that were given out to a couple other companies. And those magazines failed like crazy. It got to the point where the only magazines the government would take were OK Industry magazines, 33710. Their durability, their reliability is noteworthy. They are typical GI magazines, and they have the same limitations as GI magazines. Aluminum, not designed to be used over and over again. You will see all the generations of the 33710 magazines. You will see the black, you'll see the green followers, you'll see the tan followers, you'll see the blue followers. They manufactured pretty much every magazine that we've ever had in this country. Any guys who are looking to buy aluminum magazines, if it has the cage code 33710, you're good to go. Now, a few years back, they went ahead and they started getting into their own magazines. They started selling them outside of OEM. So now you have branded OK magazines. What we have here is a standard GI 33710 OK Industries marked magazine. And now we have a new family of magazines which are referred to as the Surefire. Now you can see a lot of differences between the geometry of the feed lips on the Surefire versus the standard GI. You can see the changes in here. You can see more durable the way the metal is folded down, different feed angles, and you can also see a difference in the follower as well. It's a complete anti-tilt follower. Another nice thing about the Surefire magazines is you have this nice grip texture on here as well. It makes it much easier to remove and install out of the magazine while to grab even when you have filthy hands. The Surefire magazines come in gray, tan, and black. Same followers, but they give you 3 different colors. These are probably the cream of the crop. These are the best magazines that OK has ever offered. And for as far as I am concerned, when you're looking at any kind of aluminum magazine, this is top tier, absolutely. Those of you who talk about, Colt magazines. Colt magazines, these are Colt magazines. Any Colt magazine that you'll ever find, you will see 33710 on there with their date code. And the ones that were earlier than that, you will see, you push the follower down in the magazine, and the inside you will see OK's marking in there as well. So, aluminum magazines, cream of the crop, no question, OK Industries. The next magazine we're looking at is a Men 2. A Men 2 is a polymer magazine. It's a very durable polymer magazine. I first saw these when I was doing some reviews on some American Tactical, their Omni series. American Tactical had done some reviews on several magazines to see what they wanted to provide with their guns. And according to American Tactical's engineers, they felt this is probably one of the best magazines they had seen for durability and reliability in polymer magazines. Well, I can't go as far as to say that because I haven't done that kind of testing, but I will say that from the testing that I have done on these have been a reliable magazine. I really can't pick anything apart with them. I've had none break. I've used them extensively. Over the years, I've had several tests where we're looking at 10, 12,000 rounds on a particular rifle. These would be loaded up over and over again, and I had no issues with them. So I definitely would say Plinker, yes. Probably law enforcement, yes. Military, I think we'd have to wait and see what real world military testing would show. Men 2, excellent magazine. The next magazines we're looking at are magazines manufactured by Sig. Now we have a couple different ones. The one I have in my right here is got a lot of the original Thermold or Orlite type look to them, relatively cheap. Not a magazine I would want to put my life on, relatively flimsy. Not really a very good magazine. The next one, however, this one here looks to me as it was manufactured by CAA. It's almost identical in every way except for the way you have the stippling on the side here and the way the sides look. You do see we also have, there was an insert to make one that was a see-through. So this is basically a CAA magazine branded for Sig. And as we previously spoke, I had a lot of good luck with the CAA magazines, but we did have some issues with some cracking. So I definitely wouldn't say that they're military grade, although the Israeli military would disagree. Sig, they really didn't do too much with these. I don't really remember too many guns that these magazines ever came with. If you were to look at any of the Sig 516s or whatever, they're always coming with Lancer magazines these days. So evidently they felt that the Lancer magazine was a much better magazine than the ones that they were having on OEM. The only place I really ever saw these for sale was on Sig's website. Again, because they were available, I got them. Again, not noteworthy. They're not nowhere near the best. Not the worst, but take or go. I would avoid this one here. The one that's made by CAA would certainly be a good magazine. The next magazine is one you don't see too often. This is manufactured by CZ. This came with my Bren too, and it's a polymer magazine that has the witness on the right hand side. Relatively well-made magazine. I did a 6,000 round endurance test on this rifle, and we had these that were used over and over and over again, so I couldn't even tell you how many times it's been loaded. I've had no problems with them. I've not seen these really for sale outside of CZ. There may be some place that's selling them, so I don't even know what the availability is. I just figured that since I had access to it, I would show it to you. Certainly a good law enforcement or plinking magazine. I have yet to see what the military grade would be. Now, I will say the CZ Bren 2s that are in service with the Czech Army, they're using DNH Tactical aluminum magazines. They are not using these. These seem to be more of a commercial type magazine. The next magazines we have here are ProMag. Now, ProMag, unfortunately, I've had a lot of issues with malfunctioning, with breaking, even with fitting. That's their AR and their AK magazines. So I cannot say I am ever very, very fond of the ProMag magazines. The one I have here in my hand here is the one I had a significant amount of problems with. I definitely wouldn't recommend it for plinking at best, but no active world or no self-defense conditions. The second one was their next generation, which is referred to as the roller mag. You're going to see in a photograph coming up here that there's a roller on the front that's supposed to help with keep the follower straight and keep your rounds pointed properly so they feed properly. Now, I can't say I've not had one of these break. No, I used them quite a bit. I haven't had any issues with feeding. The limited use I've had with these, they work well. Unfortunately, I guess I'm sort of tainted by the original ones and the failures, and again, the issues with them fitting in a lot of receivers. That it's not what I would consider a go-to world magazine. This is something again I would probably reserve for a range magazine. If it works in your gun, great. If it doesn't, don't use it. But this is certainly not one of the top tier type magazines. The next magazine we have here is manufactured by Daniel Defense. This is a 32 round magazine. It holds a couple extra rounds. Very, very well made. This is a magazine that I've had a lot of use with. We've used these in many endurance tests with different rifles. Never had a failure. So this is certainly a magazine that absolutely good for self-defense, absolutely good for range. They're not really that expensive. They have a nice thing on here that you can pull them out of the magazine pouch. It takes the stripper clip attachment tool, so you can load it with stripper clips. It's a little bit of an oddball again because it's 32 rounds, so it sort of screws up your stripper clips. But however, those extra 2 rounds, that's great. But I definitely have no problem recommending the Daniel Defense magazine. The next magazines were ones that I had come across by accident. I was just flipping through on the internet and saw this company called Hera Arms, and it's a company out of Germany, and they were manufacturing magazines. So they had offered a few different types. They have one here, which you can see where you have the whole spine is exposed, so you can see your cartridges. And they also had one that was solid as well. So I had called up and I had got some sent to me. And the initial ones, they were a little more, I don't want to say flimsy, but they were not nearly as strong a polymer as I've seen in the past. So what it came down to was how did they work. These things worked excellent. I had extensive experience with these. We've used these a lot. You can see, again, another window that's filthy because of how much it's been used. I certainly would recommend these. However, a couple years ago, they came out with a Gen 2. Gen 2, even better. They fixed some of the polymer. The polymer is a much stronger polymer, much more aggressive on the front. You have a much stronger window in the rear. You have a much more aggressive magazine. Unfortunately, these will not take your stripper clips. Doesn't have the guide for that. But for as far as durability and reliability, these have been excellent. I can't give you anything negative about them. They work. So for as far as self-defense, for as far as law enforcement use and Plinker, absolutely. Again, military, until they go through the testing, we just don't know. And it's very extensive. Relatively inexpensive, excellent magazine. Go. The next one we have here is interesting. It's one of those things where it was a solution to a problem that never existed. This was supposedly to make it easier to load, the Kamenga EasyMag. Basically what you did was you pulled this down all the way, and you would drop your rounds in there. And once you dropped your rounds in there, you would push this all the way up, and it would engage your spring. Well, unfortunately, when you go to load these, because of the way they sit in the back, it's very difficult for those rounds to get to seat properly. So does it make your life any easier than the other magazines? Absolutely and utterly not. Very, very expensive. It's a good steel magazine, but overall the design with the way this comes down, it loads, no. Now, does it feed properly? Yeah, I've never had any problems with these things feeding once they're loaded. Quite frankly, whenever I did use these, I never loaded them like with this. I just loaded them like you would a normal magazine. It seemed to be much better. They're relatively expensive, but again, this is sort of an answer to a question that was never asked. Not worth spending the extra money for it. They do work, but this does not give you anything. You are so much better off using a mag lula or a mag pump or whatever to load these magazines. This does not do a thing for you for time or anything else. In fact, I think it's more frustrating trying to get these rounds to line up properly so you can put the full 30 rounds in there. Next magazine is the Tapco 30-round magazine. This, unfortunately, is another one of those ones that I don't have much good to say about. I've had many magazine wells. These just don't fit in. They're a very large magazine. They don't work with they don't work with the HK 416. They're very limited on sort of what they will work with them. Yeah, this is sort of just like the same thing with the AK versions that the Tapco makes. There's so many guns they just don't fit in. It's like they're oversized a lot. This is a Plinker magazine at best. I would definitely not use this for any real world. You do see Tapco having a lot of contracts with OEMs who require U.S. made parts. But this is just not a magazine that has the quality that I would have for a defense magazine. There's just too many variables whether these will work or not. The next magazines we have here are referred to as the Troy BattleMag. This is an excellent magazine that I have used for many, many years. I have some OEM contracts as well. These are an excellent magazine that I can't give you anything negative about them. There's two different floor plates. One has a little handle here where you can pull them out of your magazine pouch when you have a flat one, more of a low profile one. These can be loaded with stripper clips. Been using these for many, many years. I can't say anything bad about these. Plinker, absolutely. Defense, absolutely. Military, again, we leave that same realm of where we just don't know until that testing is done. But absolutely excellent magazine for the price and for what you get. It's definitely the top tier of the polymer magazines. The next magazine we have here is manufactured by DNH Tactical. Now, this is a magazine I just received over the last few months. I put a few magazines through it. It has worked fine. I will say, looking at the material, it has a lot of that same issues I think the original Thermold had. It's not a very durable polymer. I have not had any break on me. Definitely say that, but I haven't had as much experience with them. The quality of this magazine, this is up to par with a Plinker magazine. The construction of the way this is set up, I don't really feel that this is a defense magazine, something I really would want to trust to defend my life with. It is decent quality. I will be doing more shooting with these to see how they do actually hold up. But at this point, just judging by just the finish and feel of these, they don't have the strength and the durability of the PMag, the Lancer, and some of these other ones. The next magazine we have here is manufactured by Plinker Arms. And they know exactly what their intent is. Plinker. This magazine probably is a little bit more durable, or the polymer seems a little bit stronger than the Toolman. But overall, it's still a relatively thin polymer. This is another one I just got my hands on. I've got probably 2 or 3 loads through these, and it's worked fine. I haven't any problem. All the guns I've had, it's fit in and it's drop free, so no issue with that. But mechanically, so far, I can't give you any negatives about it. I can just tell you from the feel of it. Again, it's not that of some of these more durable, magazines. It's a lot thinner, and I think a lot of these manufacturers are looking at that market where it's less expensive market. But again, for a Plinker, if we're just going on target shooting, I'd say this would definitely be a go for that. I don't know until I get a lot more experience whether I want to go any higher than that. The next magazine we see here is the FN Scar 16 Light magazine. Now, oddly enough, this is an extremely expensive magazine. You can get the exact same magazine a lot less expensive from its original manufacturer. This magazine is manufactured by DNH Tactical, and you can tell that because you have the 04T04-0413. Well, 04T04 is the cage code for DNH Tactical. This is a steel magazine that's being manufactured for FN by DNH. For as far as the quality of the magazine is concerned, it's an excellent magazine. Durable, heavy steel. Certainly can't give any negatives to it at all. I just think that it's overpriced because you're paying for the FN name when you can go right to the mouth and get some steel magazines from DNH Tactical directly. DNH Tactical manufactures both aluminum and steel magazines. This is the old LaBelle company that used to be a USGI manufacturer. They're out of Wisconsin. They do have a lot of military contracts, a lot of OEM. In fact, this magazine you see here, the aluminum magazine, this is in use by the Czech Army with their Bren 2s. They're actually bought from here, sent over to the Czech, and that's what their main magazine is. So that's a testament to the quality that DNH Tactical has. I actually am quite fond of their 308 magazines, SR25 pattern. I certainly could not recommend these any higher. The steel magazines certainly are better. They're a lot more durable than the aluminum ones, but there's a little bit of extra weight. And, a lot of people want to go to that. We want the lightest possible, but unfortunately, there does come a point where you get so light where you do start sacrificing that reliability and durability. And sometimes there's just things you don't want to cross. You want to maintain that reliability, and you need to do that with the proper magazines, the proper materials, and that is unfortunately heavier. They do come with mag pull followers, anti-tilt followers. Everyone I've seen does come with those. So, again, you're looking at the FN Scar magazines. Yep, you want to spend the extra money to put the FN's name on them, go for it. You want the same quality of magazine, go to the steel magazines at DNH Tactical. The next magazines are probably one of the ones that I use the most. And I know a lot of OEMs that do as well. I know a lot of OEMs go to this company when they want to build new magazines. This is C-Products, or what we refer to as Duramag. C-Products has gone on, it's been around for quite a few years. I can remember when C-Products was located right near Hartford, Connecticut. I remember when I was working for Colt, I went and I visited them. And their plant, it was right outside of Hartford, Connecticut. And I saw at that time, around the 2008 or 9 time period, they were all using robots that was assembling things. It was excellent. They had done some OEM work with Colt on their 9mm. The magazines have been quite well. They were bought, and C-Prox Defense moved down to Florida. And they were bought by a gentleman from Lebanon who is extremely Adele is very knowledgeable on magazines. He's very professional, and he also knows how to work with other companies. And they also have their new generation, which is called the Duramag. And it's a steel magazine, orange follower. Probably the best, one of the best made steel ones that's out there. I've used them extensively. Again, I'm sure I've said that many times, extensively. If you look at some of their 760x39 magazines, those were developed in cooperation with Sig, which is why they're probably the only 760x39 magazine that I would endorse because they work all the time. He manufactures magazines for every caliber that's out there, the newer calibers, and he is generally a go-to guy for many of the OEMs to develop magazines for their new rifles. They do make 10-round magazines, 20-round magazines, as well as the 40 here, and you see the 30. The 40s, as you're going to see from a video that I have, work just fine. The problem is it just gets that much longer. It's a little bit more hard to use if you got to hit prone. So under certain conditions, these 40-round magazines work well. 30-round magazines are ideal for most situations. But again, he gives you 20-round magazines. And for those of you who are in occupied states, you can get 10-round magazines and 5-round magazines. But highly recommend C-Products Defense, which is now Duramag. The next magazines are referred to as Elander. It's another Israeli magazine. Now, for as far as quality, these are excellent. They are steel magazines, really good anti-tilt followers. They have an excellent finish on them. It doesn't wear off. It's a very lubricious type finish as well. Been using these for, I'd say at least 7-8 years. Can't give you a negative thing to say about them. They're heavy, which they're steel. These are not cheap aluminum magazines. So you expect that. They have a lot of appearance, the same appearance as the HK high performance magazine or high reliability magazine. If you look at the way that they're made, the steel, the way everything is constructed on them, they have a big similarity to those. But I certainly would highly recommend these for law enforcement, plinking, and you know what? I would think these magazines would do very well in military as well. Although I haven't really seen any hard data of NATO testing. But I can't see any reason why these probably wouldn't be suitable for military use. 30 round, and we have here a 20 round. They do make some other magazines. I will say that their 760 by 39 one, I would avoid like the plague. It has the same basic profile as this, and they don't work. But the 5.56 magazines work 1,000%. I would certainly highly recommend them for any use. Okay. Next, we have what's referred to as ETS, Elite Tactical Systems. This is another magazine which I've used for many, many years when they first came out. These are probably one of the first companies that was really successful with a translucent color. And as you can see, these things here, you can couple these together. So you can have two together. And of course, these two over here don't have the coupling capability. You can get them without that with it. But you're looking at you have a top cover very similar to that of the PMag. Where basically the whole purpose of the top cover is it pushes down on the top round, so it gets that top round off the top feed lip, so there's no connection between the cartridge and the feed lip when it's being stored, therefore no wear on the magazine. So we have the coupled versions, and we do have a new version. The newest version is relatively neat because if you look in the back, you will see a tritium lamp. So basically, in the nighttime, you'll be able to see wherever this is a tritium lamp to tell you how many rounds you've got in your magazine. Of course, you're going to be guessing, but you're going to be able to see in the middle of the night or in low-level light conditions exactly how many rounds are in there. So this is one of the newer features that they offer, which is pretty neat. But these are, again, magazines I've never had any issue with. I've been using them for many, many years since they came out. And I just talked to Mr. Loveday, which is the owner over there, and I asked Eddie if he's had any changes over the last several years. He goes, no, we haven't had to. We've been the same. The only change that we've had is we now offer the tritium follower, which is a pretty neat little gadget there. So certainly another magazine I have no problem recommending for defense, for plinkers. Again, military grade. Only time will tell if there's any NATO tests that are done on them. The next magazines are ones that I have just gotten my hands on probably about 2 months ago. A company referred to as TorqueMag. Now, what we see here is a 50-round magazine and a 35-round magazine. The 35-round magazine, if you compare it to a regular GI, it's pretty much the same size. There's very little difference. There's a little bit, but not much. What makes this magazine so unique is the way that the feeding works. Now, when you look at this cutaway, which is pretty cool, the main difference between this magazine and anything else that's been done, it has a spring, a rolled spring, very similar to that of a spring that you would have in a tape measure. What that does is that spring is attached here, and it forces the magazine follower up, so it keeps that round presenting high at all times. So that basically decreases your ability to have a failure to feed because the bullet's caught down too far, it won't clear the magazine. And looking at this, I was talking to the owner, and I said, you know what, this would be very interesting to see how this works with the M855A1. Because if you look at the Enhanced Performance magazine and the PMag, what makes those work with the M855A1 is the fact that those rounds sit up that much higher. And this one actually does. This one keeps those rounds up nice and high. But again, you can see the roll of the spring, and you can see how as you push the rounds down, and you can see how that extends. So again, what that does is it keeps everything up. I have gotten, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 full loads out of this 50-round magazine, fired them in both fully automatic and on semi, not had a single malfunction. This is something that I do plan on doing a video all on its own at some point on this, especially after I get some more experience with them. Very, very impressive. It's very different. It certainly is a different way of approaching the problem of keeping the rounds from feeding, from not feeding because of them sitting too low. This is certainly a good way to do that. But only time will tell how durable that is. See how durable this is, and we're going to get at least a couple thousand rounds for this at least this one magazine, and we'll see how it holds up, and we're going to be getting back to you on it. But these Surefire have proven themselves to be excellent magazines. Now, the 35-round magazine, again, it's far more it's far more practical. As neat as these high-capacity ones are, they are so long that if you had to drop to the prone, the rifle would be so high up you couldn't see through the sights. If you're in a fixed position or a foxhole position where you can have this thing sticking down, they're great. They work. So it's not a mechanical issue that comes with them. It's with these long magazines, they just get too long for you to be able to use practically in a combat scenario. But we'll be getting back to you on these. So far, so good. If we go back to the early days of the global war on terror, H&K produced what's referred to as a high reliability magazine, which is basically the same magazine that they produced for the British SA-80 to improve the reliability of that rifle. And they basically introduced that for the M16 M4 system as well. Basically, you have an extremely heavy magazine. It's basically tank-proof. It's durable. It's reliable, strong. Certainly an excellent magazine, but it has the weight of probably 2 aluminum magazines. And what really gets it not so much the weight, it's the cost. The price of these magazines was absolutely outrageous. They basically, it was like everything that HK produces. It was very much, it's cost prohibitive. Most people can't really afford them. The magazine has gone on to prove itself with special operations through militaries throughout the world. It definitely fixed a major issue that the SA-80 had over in England. So HK, with the development of the HK416, they went ahead and they designed their first polymer magazine, which you see here. 30-round magazine. These were relatively inexpensive. I mean, they were certainly far more expensive than a PMag, but for as far as HK went, they definitely were an affordable magazine. Now, I think I got initially 5 of these magazines, and one of them, after pretty extensive use, I had a split right down the back here. Now, that was one of the 5, and all those were used like that, so I can't tell you whether that was just a deficiency in one magazine or it was the design. I only had it happen to one magazine, but it was a relatively expensive magazine to see that happen with it. Of course, HK took care of it immediately when I called them up, and I took photos and sent it to them, and they sent me a new one. And I continue to use these in my regular rotation when I test rifles without any problems. But there was one magazine that I did have that problem with. So we will refer to this as their Gen 1, basically, their Gen 1 AR magazine. Now we have a Gen 2 magazine. This is currently what's in production now. Unfortunately, these are not being imported by HK USA. These were brought in by Arms Unlimited, and you're looking at almost $90 for a polymer magazine with H&K's name on it. Now, again, H&K, you generally, because of that name, you do have to spend that kind of money. But that's an absurd amount of money for a magazine, especially a polymer magazine. I wanted to get a couple of them just for this video itself to give you guys show you that there is a Gen 3. The only place that I am aware it's available through is Arms Unlimited. I don't know what their quantities are. They are the only one bringing them in. HK USA is not. And I'm unaware of anybody else. But if you can see the differences, you now have a witness on the back and witnesses on the left and right hand side to see how many rounds are in there. You have a different texture. Now, to my disappointment, the 2 of them that I got when I would insert these into my MR556 they were stiff. I had to push it in and pull them out. Neither one of them dropped free. So is that the actual magazine, or is it my magazine well on my particular rifle? I don't know. But all I know is I would have expected an HK magazine to fit in and out of an HK product. So not really sure what the deal is there. They offer these in two colors. You have black and you have the tan. I tend to like to go with the tan, with black myself, not much into flat dark earth. But this is available if your wallet will permit, and they have them in stock at Arms Unlimited. You can get the HK Gen 2 magazines. But the high reliability magazine, as I said, it's excellent. And it has a lot of the same feel as that Elander does. These just work. They absolutely do. It's really cost and weight. Is their reliability worth the weight? I guess that can go either way. If you have a new aluminum magazine or a good steel magazine, even a good C-Products or Duramag is lighter than this, but I feel it's just as good, and it's probably a quarter of the price. But you got HK fans out there. These are the three products that are offered by H&K. This is the one that's a little bit harder to find. The next magazine we have is ASC, or Advanced Storage Components. This is another magazine manufacturer that manufactures aluminum and steel magazines. I have been using these for quite some time. This is another company where you'll see quite a bit of OEM. I can't say anything bad about them. Using the aluminum magazines, I've been using them for years. I've had some difficulty with their 7.62x39 and some of their 6.8s I've had some difficulties with, but the 5.56 I've never had any issues at all with. So whether you find the aluminum or the steel of the ASC, I certainly would recommend them without a doubt for law enforcement, for commercial plinking use, military use. Again, it's one of those magazines that until I see NATO standard testing done on it to tell you how it is, I'm really not going to tell you that. But I can just tell you from my experience, this has been a go. I've never had any issues. What we have here is the Surefire magazines with the 60 round and the 100 round. This was a design by Jim Sullivan, one of Stoner's draftsmen who worked on the AR-15 program. Basically, it's they call these coffin magazines, as you can see from the way they're shaped. Basically, instead of having 2 columns of 15 rounds, you have 4 columns of 15 rounds. That's why you have the wider diameter here. And of course, here you have, I'm not doing the math, but again, you have 4 columns which hold 100 rounds. I've seen some mixed reviews on these. People say they work, and then some say they don't work. I'm not going off of what they're saying. I'm going off of what my experience was. I've had this magazine since they first announced them coming out, and I have been using it extensively throughout the years. I don't even know how many years. If we find out when this was actually introduced, that's how long I've been using it. I've never had a single malfunction with any. I have 2 of these, and I have 2 of these. This one has been used forever, and I have never had an issue on full auto or on semi-automatic. This, with its shape, it's not much longer than the original 30-round magazine. So this is an ideal first magazine to have in your gun for a combat load. I have yet to have malfunctions with it. To have 60 rounds, it's balanced. It's right in with the rifle. If you had to drop to prone, I got 60 rounds here where I can do that. Now, for sort of the unpleasantness, this is the exact same thing that we've talked about with those other high-capacity magazines. This has worked 100%. I haven't used it that much because it's just so impractical because of its length. As long as this is, if you had to drop down and prone, you would have your head exposed and you have to stick your head all the way up just to look through your optic. It's just not practical. This does work, but it is just not a practical magazine under too many conditions. If you're firing offhand, this is pretty cool, but unfortunately, this is a novelty. This is not anything practical in the real world. That one is. This one works. You're going to see some footage of this being used. I certainly have no problem recommending these. Again, I know there's some guys who have had problems, and I cannot speak for them. All the ones that I have used and some of the manufacturers who I know who've tested these, it's all been good. So I guess you get one, you see if it works in your gun, and if it does, I think you have one heck of a load for your first load and a combat load. The next magazine we have here is manufactured by Schmeiser in Germany, and it is imported by American Tactical, and it is a 60 round coffin type magazine. Now, I had first seen these many years ago. I was at a trade show in France. Schmeiser was there. They were showing these. And SHOT Show a few years ago, they had shown these as well. Not American Tactical, but Schmeiser had some. And they had a really small booth, even though at that time the stuff was not importable. Come to find that the American Tactical was approached by Schmeiser because American Tactical does a lot of work in Germany, GSG, and so forth. And they said if they're interested in importing them. And American Tactical, I've had a long-lasting relationship. They sent me a couple of these and says, let me try them, see how they work. And when I tried them, they worked great. There is only one little Achilles heel on this one, and that is the way the follower works. There is a tab on the back of the magazine here that lifts up. The follower lifts upward on this tab. And if that gets a little bit dirty, that can prevent you from having it lock open in the last shot. You're going to see some footage of me shooting this in a Colt open bolt machine gun. And reliability was 1,000%, no problem. But it did not like to lock open on that last shot. So that was a little bit of an issue with the way that worked. I've had a few of these. I've only had a couple of guns where it didn't like the way the lock open worked. But the reliability is 100%. The cost is far more than that of the Surefire or anything else. Reliability is just as good there. You have the ability to use your military stripper clips, your notch on there for your follower to drop on there. Excellent magazine, and I continue to use these, and I've had no issues so far, other than a couple issues with failure to lock back on the rear. And that's only been with a specific couple guns. But these are currently available from American Tactical. One of the first drums that we had here was put out by X-Products. This is referred to as the X15 50-round drum magazine. Now, basically what you're doing is you're winding down to drop your rounds into it. This particular one is a see-through, so you can see the rounds that go all the way around it. And I've used this thing extensively for, I probably would say at least 7-8 years, however long this has been out. I got these this was the first generation, the first ones that came out, and I've been using them extensively on fully automatic and extensively on semi-automatic for many, many years. I've only incurred a couple issues with these. I had several rifles where when you would insert this and hit the bolt catch, the bolt wouldn't go forward. Some rifles would, some wouldn't. So it wasn't 100% compatible with everything that I had ever tested. The other thing I didn't particularly care about this one is the bolt did not lock open in the last shot with it. This did not have an ability for it to do that. Where you look at the Magpul, the D60, it's less expensive than this. Usually it's less expensive than this. But you have it locked open on the last shot every time. You have also the ability to see what's in there without actually having everything exposed, so dirt and dust and everything get into it. But again, that's this particular model that has the see-through in it, where they have ones that are solid. Absolutely do work. You'll see footage this being used in a full auto LMT, 100%. Again, only a few rifles I've had issues with it actually bolt feeding when the bolt catch is released. The last magazine we have here is a KCT Industries polymer magazine. This is another one of those relatively inexpensive magazines. I believe it's Korean made. It uses a relatively thin material. You do have the window on here as well. This is one I've only got a couple loads through. It does work so far with the guns I put it in, 2 guns I put it in. Overall, as far as the quality of it is concerned, is it one of the higher quality polymers? No. These here, you can definitely push in a little bit on them. It's really better than a couple of those. It does have an anti-tilt follower. The reliability has been decent. Only time is going to tell if this one. There's a couple of these magazines I'll be reporting back to you guys on once I get more experience with them. I want to talk to you a little bit about cage codes, and you're going to be seeing a chart come up here that's going to let you know who some of these are. As I said, a lot of these manufacturers do manufacture for OEMs. So you're going to be able to tell by looking at the cage code who the actual manufacturer is. What it says at the bottom of the floor plate generally means nothing. Very few, if any, of these gun manufacturers manufacture their own magazines in-house. They will subcontract out. So starting with CF199, Center Industries Corporation, which is a military manufacturer. Magpul, their cage is 1LX50, but you will always know a Magpul magazine when you see one. OK Industries, like we had said, 33710. You will see that code on many, as I said, LMT, Colt. There are many manufacturers who will use OK Industries. We have Center Industries Corporation, 6P199, Brownells, 12238. C-Products, 6M9N8. DNH Tactical, Q4TQ4, and that's used on the FN SCAR 16. So there you have it. That's probably at least 40 different magazines that we've had experience with, some more than others. I do have a pretty good handle, I think, on what the quality ones are and which ones aren't. There's some of them we will continue to come back to you and give you reports back on. But a lot of magazines out there and a lot of different choices, and they all seem to have something else going for them that the others may or may not. So I hope you found this useful, not more confusing because of how many magazines there were. But we do hope you enjoyed this video. If you please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share. Thank you.